Kaldros's clutch. In the shadowed crypts beneath the fields of the dead, where even time dares not tread, a mortal known as Kaldros of the Vale began the work of becoming something far greater and darker. Kaldros, a man of flesh, a necromancer not for the sake of death, but for the sake of memory. He sought to shape undeath into something purposeful, resonant with meaning. He envisioned a future where the dead did not rise to serve, but to remember. His aim was neither domination nor revenge, but transformation, of magic, of legacy, and ultimately of himself. Before he had become the bearer of the veil, Kaldros had once studied beneath a high arcanist of the Ivory Enclave, where magic was taught without emotion, without purpose, beyond control. Even then he questioned their sterile doctrines. It was not power he craved, but permanence. When war claimed his family and plague took his city, he turned away from the academy, vanishing into the ruins with a single book and a shard of soulstone, determined never again to let memory fade. It was in those ashes that Kaldros the man became Kaldros of the Vale. Within the sealed halls of his mausoleum, buried deep in a forgotten barrow beneath the wind-lashed moors, Kaldros forged a spell born entirely of will, Kaldros's touch. It required no word, no gesture, no reagents. It was an act of thought alone, but its design was flawed. It raised the dead, yes, but not with the purpose he demanded. The dead returned empty. And so he turned outward, seeking lost knowledge buried beneath centuries of war, sorrow, and divine apathy. The journey began in the sanctum of Valzarun, a desecrated temple once devoted to an extinct order of death priests who had sought communion through silence. Its doors were shattered, its symbols chiseled away by those who feared its truths. Within its dust-choked halls, he discovered 3 ancient sarcophagi, resting places of Ser Vedran, a commander who died cursing his gods, the pale paladin, an oath-bound knight who had knelt at the altar of silence, and the broken god, an echo of divinity unmade by failure. Kaldros awakened them not with magic, but with invitation. He communed with their lingering souls, piercing the veil between life and undeath, not with force, but with shared pain. They rose as his god, not mindless, but bound to him by grief and chosen purpose. In the heart of the sanctum stood a ritual platform of cracked obsidian. When Kaldros stepped upon it, the air twisted. A vision came, not prophecy, but memory yet to be born. He saw himself pulling power from a rift between what is and what was. His hand wreathed not in flame or ice, but in sorrow. The vision burned into him a path toward the sepulchre of forgotten echoes. The sepulchre lay beneath the fields of the dead, deeper than bone, where silence was not absence, but presence. The descent into its depths was marked by fading light and vanishing echoes. Effigies lined the walls, unseeing, unblinking, their mouths sewn shut with threads of gold. There he found not guardians, but watchers, faceless constructs of mourning stone who had forgotten what they once revered. Their blind eyes turned as he passed, and the air grew heavier with every step. At the heart of the sepulchre, a hovering stone slate revealed the first truth. Kaldros's touch was bound by 3 limits: form, voice, and dominion. To break them, he would need 3 sacred artifacts: the vessel of cursed stone and sorrowed iron, the severing phrase, and the catalyst of forgotten faith. To retrieve the vessel, he traveled to the bleeding coast, to the vault of black salt, a drowned wound on the edge of the world, where the tide ran red and birds fell from still skies. The land was salted with divine neglect, and even memory failed to cling to the land. There, beneath the cliffs, He passed through stone spirals and silent effigies, opening the way with a whisper remembered by the reliquary he carried. The vault did not open through force, but recognition. In the heart of the vault, in a chamber that pulsed with forgotten suffering, he discovered the relic, not crafted, but grown from grief, hardened into substance. He performed the binding ritual with perfect clarity, no chant nor sacrifice, only will. The vessel joined him, reshaping his spell. Now, when the dead rose, they did so carrying the weight of what they had lost. His next trial lay in the depths of Dolam Var, beneath the mirror barrows. With his personal guard alone, he passed through collapsing sanctuaries and mirrored halls haunted by memory echoes, remnants of souls severed from their own pasts. Each hall reflected not just his face, but his doubts, his regrets, his former self. Specters watched him from broken walls, and scripture wards flickered with half-prayers that attacked the unworthy. He spoke their verses in reverse, unraveling their judgment. In the sealed library of arch-severant lyrics, he confronted not guardians, but concepts, truths willingly forgotten and lies once believed. He spoke both, unflinching, and claimed the severing phrase. In the scripture cradle, he offered the most personal sacrifice, the memories of his parents, not erased, but severed. He remembered they existed, but not the shape of their voices or the warmth of their presence. In doing so, Kaldros's touch evolved again, becoming the severed form. It now raised not just bodies, but beliefs. 12 dead at once, each loyal, each complex. The final step lay within. Kaldros returned to his soul forge where the ashen reliquary waited. It had traveled with him for years, a relic bound to his past and sealed by forgotten gods. To complete his spell's transformation, he had to descend into it, face the divine grief within, and either absorb or be consumed. He stepped into the reliquary and found no god, only a wound that had learned to speak. It offered him oblivion. He offered it purpose. And when it asked to become his name, he said no.
I am Kaldros of the Vale. I do not mourn. I shape. I do not grieve. I build. I do not serve forgotten gods and timeless pain. I replace them.
The wound bowed, and he emerged, changed. The catalyst fused into his soul. The spell was complete. To test what he and his spell had become, Kaldros chose a nameless village, Darnell's Hollow. Isolated, godless, unknown. With only his personal guard and 12 risen dead, he marched under open sky. As he approached, the villagers gathered with uncertainty. A few clutched farming tools. One child hid behind her mother's skirt. Most stood silent, staring not at the undead, but at the figure at their head. Kaldros looked upon them and thought,
These people are not useless. They are merely forgotten. And so they will serve a new memory.
He addressed them plainly.
You were forgotten, but I remember, and now you will shape what I am to become.
A murmur ran through the crowd. The eldest among them stepped forward, lips trembling, hands raised in plea, but Kaldros did not speak again. He watched. His risen moved, not with savagery, but ritual. They flanked and herded, spared the helpless, and judged the cruel. One woman who spat in defiance was struck down instantly. Another who shielded a child was passed by. The undead moved with purpose, each decision echoing some unspoken code etched into their resurrection. And still Kaldros watched.
I have made a spell not of death,
he thought,
but of sorrow. Let their grief bear the fruit of remembrance.
A boy screamed as his father fell. The child's voice rang across the hollow, cutting through the mist like a bell that would never stop tolling. Kaldros turned his gaze toward the boy, not with malice, but with quiet recognition.
You will remember this. You will tell it. You will carry my name where silence once reigned.
When the work was done, the village did not burn. It was not desecrated. It remained eerily untouched, windows unbroken, doors ajar, hearth still warm with dying coals. But it was no longer the same. A stillness had fallen over it, deeper than silence, like the breath held between worlds. The air itself had changed, as though the veil now lingered here, brushing against every wall and whispering through the grain of every beam. Blood had dried, but not all had been shed. The dead lay where they fell, placed intentionally, their positions suggestive of sorrow, of shame, of remembrance. Each body became a monument. Children clung to hollow-eyed elders, no longer crying, only watching, understanding in some instinctual way that something greater than horror had passed through their lives. What remained was not ruin, but weight, the kind that bends the minds of future generations. Kaldros did not destroy the village. He etched it into history. He turned it into a wound that would never fully close. A living monument to a forgotten people who would now be remembered only through him. He made it a memory given form, a message carved into the veil. He waits. He watches. He builds. In the heart of the Soul Forge, Kaldros watches his risen patrol the ancient halls, 12 faithful echoes of grief and purpose, each bound not by chains, but by belief. His personal guard, Sir Vedran, the Pale Paladin and the Broken God, stand ever vigilant, observing, adapting, becoming more than what they once were. The Withered Seer records the rhythms of undeath in quiet script, transcribing his master's legacy into a tome no mortal eyes will read, except perhaps one day, born of shadow and ambition. His scouts, made from bone and forgotten purpose, slip through planar rifts under cover of silence, charting new domains and measuring the strength of divine wards. Even now preparations begin in secret crypts and hollows. Relics gathered, wards layered, altars marked for something far greater than a kingdom or a cult. He is Kaldros of the Veil, sorrow wielder, architect of undeath, and the future god of what even the gods tried to erase.